Yeah. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. John Henry Soto here along with George Batista. Welcome to Counterparts. We are very happy that you're here with us this evening on this special kind of a tribute to our our musical past and our maybe our future, right? Who knows? Who knows? But George and I, and we talk about it sometimes on this show, we're musicians and we played together in different bands. One being A Glass of No, which was a band that we were in for pretty much most of the time that of our musical life. And this is what we look like in the light. back when I had hair.
Look at that hair.
George does not look any different, which is like so frustrating. George looks exactly the same. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? But that's healthy living, right? And doing yoga and
trying,
getting off the crack finally.
Finally, I know.
Years.
Hey, when that happens.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So we decided, we're what's up, Sean? Thank you very much for stopping by. Appreciate
What's up, buddy?
So we decided, you know what? We have, because this is a show really that we want to actually give something to the audience, right? We want people to walk away with some type of knowledge. Obviously, we talk about Star Trek a lot, which growing up as in music, we talked about Star Trek a lot. Yeah. And we thought, it would be a good idea to kind of put something together that could help bands that are starting out, bands that are current, bands, people that are thinking of starting bands. And then I was, we were like, oh man, we have all this knowledge of all this experience that we've had. Why not embrace that and let's bring that to the world and talk about our stuff and all that stuff. Look who's on.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Cool.
Larry Hamill.
What's up, Larry?
He's engineer, producer of our last record that we did back in
Holy cow.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate
Absolutely.
You. We had a great time during those sessions and we got a great product. And till this day, we talk about it. What's up, Larry? Thanks, man. Thank you very much. And happy birthday. I know it was your birthday month. But yeah, we had such a great time, a lot of fun, definitely some fun times, some challenging times. I learned a lot there because I'm always learning, obviously, but one of the things that I learned the most on there was a timing thing that Larry had to actually help me with the solo for that song that we just played for what was the name of that song again?
That's
Streets. For Streets, and that part at the end, I was like, I couldn't get the timing right, for the single notes, and Larry helped me with that. So I realized that one thing that I realized there during that particular moment was that I'm so used to playing on the beat, always coming in, and you can actually skip a beat and then come in, and
right,
you can really play with music and stuff, and that was something that I really learned. So thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. That
Absolutely.
was a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and George and I, George, I don't know if you got anything to say. We started playing. I went with George to buy his first drum set, which was what was it called?
Percussion Plus.
Percussion Plus.
It's funny because I don't know if you remember this, John, but when you, myself, and my cousin JJ Julio were in a room and we were saying, you know what? Why don't we make a band?
I know,
because he was actually playing guitar and you were playing guitar. And the funny part about it was like, I always loved the drums. I played the drums when I was a real little kid, so I'll play the drums, So we were like, let's do it. Let's make a band. And that's kind of what the thought process was when we started that whole thing.
Yeah, definitely, Larry. We're gonna play something for sure. In a little bit, we'll play. I have it punched up here on my computer, so I'll play some of our stuff. Yeah, I remember that because I remember you didn't have a drum set, and we were like, well, you like, you said, yeah, I like the drums. I was like, yeah, so you play drums.
Right, that
It
was
was like,
it. That was
you
done.
play drums, and I play guitar, and he played, and yep, Castle Hill. That was the view from
Castle,
Castle Hill.
yes.
Yep, that was our
And that was the place where I bought that first drum set, which was
yeah,
the all tribute to the Castle Hill Music Shop
that's right.
that I used to go to because I lived on Castle Hill, and we used to walk over there many times to just whether it was buying drumsticks or buying strings or
Or
buying
just to be
whatever,
in there.
just to be in there with all the musical instruments and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we annoyed the owner sometimes, just hanging around, staring at stuff.
Yep. Yep.
You guys gonna buy anything? Drumsticks and one pick. That's all we could afford.
Didn't you help me when I bought that set? Didn't you help me put it together?
Yeah, yeah, I
Right.
remember it clearly because I remember I knew what it looked. I knew what they looked like because I saw a drum set before,
Right.
and so and then I just used my whatever skill I had to figure things out. Oh yeah, I think this goes here, but didn't I put the hi hat on the wrong side?
Yeah, because what because
Didn't
I
you
re-
learn to play now the
because
wrong
I
way?
learned right, yeah, exactly. Because
It's all my
initially
fault.
I was playing left-handed on a right-handed kit. Really, I was, if you know anything about drums, so and then we ended up having to switch the hi hat to the other side, and it was a whole thing.
Right.
Now I learned later on how to play two ways. And by the way, John, just kind of thinking about that recording of that album, I don't know if you remember this. The the drums were in a little booth,
Hmm.
and the booth was so tight that you couldn't barely move. You couldn't move anything around. So the
Right.
ride cymbal was on the side that I usually don't play it on. It
Oh,
was on the right side. And I remember sitting there going, okay, this is going to be interesting. And you can and I was telling you, I was like, John, the right cymbal's on the right side. I usually don't. I mean, I can play it, but I usually don't play it on the right side. And you were like, are you going to be able to do this? And I was like, I'm going to have to figure it out. And I literally played that whole album with the ride cymbal on the wrong side.
really? Wow,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Holy cow. Wow, I had no idea. Yeah, I mean, most of the yeah, Larry was there.
Look at it. He was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I actually remember the first time we recorded something. It was at Audio Paint. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, audio paint, right.
Um and we went in there, and for some reason we were so nervous and so, whatever, we played every single song like it was like thrash metal,
100 miles an hour. Yes.
speed
Yes.
metal. So we still have that record, which I actually like it. I thought it was
Yeah.
kind of like a good record.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
very fast, but it was
That was
fun.
my plastic booth before.
Yeah, I remember great studio, great
Absolutely.
studio. And just, it was also when and we're going to talk about that, yeah, Holland, I don't know, we would love to have Holland chime in. I've actually invited Holland on the show, but he's kind of like, I don't know, he's shy or doesn't feel like he has anything to say. And I'm like, dude, you freaking have a lot to say. The guy wouldn't shut up when we were all hanging out. So it was like, of
True.
course. So, but we're going to be talking a lot about different experiences. Obviously, the studio is one of them that we have here. We're going to go back a little bit, and we're going to talk about the beginning of this group. And while we're actually discussing some of these moments, we also want to impart like some wisdom within things of mistakes that we've made, right? Because we've made a lot of mistakes, and how we should have handled it, or maybe how we could have, or how we did handle it and it worked out. So the beginning of this group was really with me and George. George and I was really the beginning of pretty much every group that we've been in, or at least we were the center points, right? Even of the
Right.
first thing that we did, which I can't remember now, but the first group that we played in. But one of the challenges that we always had was finding people that we liked,
Right.
because we played a lot before that, and we went. We've been to a lot of he's got a lot of work building that place. Yeah, I know
Wow.
it's sad,
Yeah.
sad, but you did put a lot of work in there, and it's definitely you did a lot of great work there. Very commendable that you put that. I know, but that's a hard business, and I think I don't know exactly what the change was, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I know that there was things were changing over from like very things were changing during that period of time. It was a
Mhm.
weird time. Social media was just coming, and but it was guys like Larry that I met Larry, and I remember Holland wanted to go to this other place that we went to. I don't know if you remember. We went
Mhm.
to a studio to meet some dude,
Mhm.
and we met a group, and we walked in there, and the whiff. I mean,
I remember.
I don't smoke cigarettes. I've never done any kind of drugs.
Right.
I
Right.
drink wine every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I just thought to myself, I don't know if I can work in that environment.
Right.
And Holland was gearing more towards that, and I met Larry, and I was just like, how I met Larry? Actually, I'll tell the story now. We went to this restaurant in Sunnyside, Queens.
Mhm.
Pamela and I, way before kids, actually, just married, actually. And we went into this restaurant, and we couldn't get. There was nobody like in the restaurant. We're sitting there, we're waiting, and yeah. So Larry says, I forget. Yeah. So I couldn't get any food. So we're waiting. So a waitress is there, very, very nice girl who's still a friend, actually. She was there, and she was saying, I'm sorry, the cook's not here yet. So I was like, oh, okay, that's understandable. So we waited. So a guy comes in, he's like, oh, sorry, I'm late. He runs into the kitchen. I ordered some eggs. The eggs come and they're runny,
Okay.
really cut into it, and they're disgusting. And I was like, so I send them back. They bring them back again, disgusting again. And I was like, so I told Pamela was like, she didn't even have her food yet.
Wow.
So we were like, let's get out of here. So I left a tip for the young lady because she did her job. It wasn't her fault. So I left her a tip, and I said, sorry, we're gonna go somewhere else. So I go to leave, and there's a stack of these magazines that are on there. And I looked at the magazine. I said, are these magazines for sale? And she's like, no, they're free. So I grabbed one, and I started looking through it. And in the back, there it was, Deep Wave, an
Ah,
ad for Larry's company. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, okay. So I reached out to him. I think it was via, I want to say email. It might have been email. It might have been a phone call. I don't even remember. But that's kind of how I met him. So having that experience, and you know what? And we're going to talk about this also because I think this is important. But instincts,
yeah.
instincts is like, it's so important, not just in music, but in life in general. When you first get that initial thing that you want to do something, that you want to, even this idea that we're doing right now, George, you had that initial idea. You didn't just sit on it.
Right.
You immediately called me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I immediately said yes, right?
Right.
It wasn't like, and it's just because you just get this kind of thing. And I remember when I was walking out and I saw those magazines, and they were kind of like nice looking magazines, like nice quality.
Mhm.
And so I said, well, let me get it. I always like going through magazines because I don't know, I'm old. And so I grabbed it, and there you go. You know what I mean? Exactly. Link to the, yep,
You're linked to the universe. Yeah.
exactly. So definitely, those moments that you have to really go into,
Absolutely.
George,
Absolutely.
anything?
No, I completely agree. And it's funny because when we went into that, again, going into that studio, I remember when I first went in there and I immediately knew, I said, oh, this is the perfect place. This is the perfect
Comfortable.
place. Because there was immediate comfort there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, how many places have you and I recorded in and, worked in or producers we've met and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there was one producer that we sat with, if you remember, who was the son of a very well-known musician.
Yes. I
If
remember that.
you remember
Yeah, the ad definitely paid off.
that paid off, and
Absolutely.
that we sat with this producer, and the vibe in there was just
And that's the problem,
so
because
bad.
there you have an opportunity that you're one step closer to a
Right,
bigger opportunity,
right,
but you have to keep your integrity. I
right,
mean, we might have
exactly.
gone and might have had this major big blow up, would it be worth it to go in that level? You know what I mean? We wanted to go in with integrity. We wanted to go in with somebody that we could respect, that respected us, that had integrity on their own. You know what I mean? And unfortunately,
Yeah. How many yeah, you're right, because how many bands or how many people would have been sucked into that and said, "You know what? I'll just do it even if I don't feel right about the person, but because this person is a big name and because they're related to somebody who's even way bigger, and you get sucked in by that." But I remember we had the conversation. We all had the conversation and we went back and forth, even leaving going down the elevator or having dinner or whatever, was like, do we really want to do that? Do we really want to go? What if we just all didn't have the vibe there.
right,
And I mean, it was a good decision for me because, like you said, it's that integrity. And sometimes that integrity, it may take you in another direction
right,
that doesn't look so glamorous. But you know what? At the end of the
yeah,
day, you still can say, you know what, I think I made that right decision.
right. And that's the challenging part, because there's so much money involved,
Yeah.
there's opportunity, there's the whole thing of fame and fortune and all that stuff. And when it's presented to you the way it was,
Hmm.
as an opportunity, that we're like, whoa, you know what
Right.
I mean? This guy knows this person, and we can't even say the people because it's still a thing.
Right. Yeah.
But we're like, we can't. I personally cannot do it, because that's just the way we were raised.
Right.
I mean, we were
Yes.
raised. Really, our grandparents, right? I mean, your grandma and my grandma were sisters,
Hmm.
and they were very, very, ethical.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just something that just came in with us. You know what I mean? And I just think that everything in life is the point in time. Yeah, those were good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Whisper. Like
No, but
Elvis.
I mean,
Elvis.
elephant, exactly. But it's funny because the other thing is, how many of those horror stories went through our minds of how many people
Right.
got taken,
Right.
right?
Well,
And then,
and it happened to us even so. I mean, even
yeah, I
still,
mean,
we
to a
still had,
certain extent,
to a certain
yes,
extent, we got a little bit of
exactly.
that.
But you hear, I mean, there was even, the singer in the first band we ever played with,
Yeah.
okay, whose record ended up being played in Europe
Hmm.
without him,
Right.
because literally they took his record and they took all the rights to it and everything, and yeah, he was done. I
Yeah.
mean, he couldn't do anything with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, it happened also to a guy that amazing keyboard player that wrote some hits in the 80s,
Mhm.
and because he took a photo for the album with a girl, there was like a background. It was him and like these three background singers, or maybe two background singers. And the girl that came in, the other girl wasn't available, so they used this other girl who didn't sing on the record, but
Mhm.
she was on the cover.
Right.
A whole legal battle that she was trying to get rights to the music because she was on the cover. She never sang a note.
Wow.
It
Look at
was
that.
that is a crazy, crazy thing. And this guy had to go to court to try to to try to protect his music. You know what I mean? So there's this ugly side of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to say that that this is the business. It's a wonderful thing, but remember the thing about playing music is playing music.
Right.
That's the thing. That's what we enjoyed the most. We didn't care about. Yeah, it was definitely a crazy, crazy thing, Larry. It was like, we didn't care about that at that point. We wanted to be successful, just like anybody wants to be
Mhm.
successful. You know what I mean? But we wanted to, more than anything, we wanted to have the rights to play music. We wanted to make the decisions we wanted to make. And if somebody came along and was able to kind of give us that boost that had some integrity, we would have taken it. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We
Right.
had a couple of times that, the studio that we went to, where the guy was like really selling hard to us, but he was
Yeah.
smoking and he's telling, yo, man, you guys don't know what you're doing. You guys need me. You guys need somebody that's gonna get And I remember that conversation, and it was hard to like say no,
Right.
But I remember that elevator. I don't know. This is a different time, but I remember also being in an elevator somewhere and just being like, I don't think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bad idea. I think we're gonna get taken advantage of, or worse, we're gonna become hugely successful and make no money
Right.
because somebody's
Right.
gonna take our money.
Yep.
Because that's
Yep.
what happens, you
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
So that was like the beginning of it. I would say that at the beginning of this whole thing, George and I decided that we were going to start this band. We knew we were going to do a band. We started a band with a friend of ours, Kelly. And Kelly was a bass player. Kelly was awesome bass player. And I had to give him props. So I have some photos of us with Kelly, if I can find it here. I only have one, which is a hilarious one. Remember this? This was the breakup.
Isn't that how the Beatles broke up?
Yeah, right. But anyway, Kelly is not the guy in the middle there, the guy at the end there.
With the fist.
Yeah, Kelly was a great guy, still a friend. Here he is, a better picture of him. And Kelly was awesome, and we got Holland afterwards. Believe it or not, Holland was the last person to be in the band, the lead singer. Holland was. We actually originally had his what would turn out to be his wife was our first singer.
That's right. She actually came to the studio.
Yeah, I think like once or twice.
She came to the studio to sing with us.
She got a great voice.
And she did have a great voice, yes. But
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember the original intention was to have her sing.
Yeah, yeah. And we had a couple of rehearsals, and it went well. You know, I think she wasn't as into it. You know, like this is one of those things you have to breathe, you know, all the time. But then I remember I had this is crazy. I had an apartment. I was living on 85th and West End Avenue, and that apartment, we lost the apartment because it was an illegal sublet. I was living, remember, we're in our 20s, and we were just like it was like, and I was living with like 5 different people, and it was kind of a rundown apartment. But one of the people that we lived with, one of the girls that we lived in, she decided to call management and to complain about something. And I used to tell her, don't complain. We're not even supposed to be here. We're paying $600 a month because it's a rent stabilized apartment. But anyway, we lost the place and I had to move somewhere. So Holland asked me, him and he got with Alicia at that point. This was after she had played with us and everything. And they got together and they were living in an apartment. And I said, all right, yeah, they had an extra room. So I moved in with them. And then one day in the kitchen, I was talking to George. I'm like, trying to find a freaking singer. And he's like, bro, he's like, he looks at me like, bro, I sing. I was like, yeah, but I was like, I thought you didn't want, because he had mentioned before that he didn't want to do it or something,
Right.
I was like, I thought you didn't want to do it. He's like, no, I want to sing. I was like, are you serious? Like, bro, that's easy then. Let's do it, And then that kind of started that process, and that's how that became the official glass of no, the first glass of no, which was basically this. And then Kelly wanted to move on. He had a girl, I think, and he wanted to pursue other things. I still talk to Kelly and his wife. They got 2 beautiful kids. They live up, I don't know where they live actually now, but they're fantastic, and just a great guy and a super talented bass player. As a matter of fact, he had a song on one of our records, our early ones, called Soon She Says,
right,
that we could never find a bass player that can play it.
That's true.
Right?
That's
we
true.
never, and that was a good song. We always liked that song. We could not find any bass player that can play that one song because it had like a lot of jazz chords in it that I was kind of experimenting with. And then the vocal lines were very melodic and stuff. And it just couldn't, I didn't even know what key that song was in, to be honest. I don't know what key it was in,
right,
but we couldn't find a bass player. So he was great. And then we went on to, I don't remember our next bass player.
Did we go to Solly from him?
I don't know. Remember Matt?
Yes. Okay, so
that was a nightmare, and I have a Matt story, but you go ahead.
Yes, Matt. But Matt was a very short thing.
Mm-hmm.
Matt was
but he came to rehearsal at least 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
True.
And, in band world, that's, when you're there that 3rd time and you're now going through the songs,
Right.
But Matt, the poor guy, had he had a bad disposition about certain things. He also was very invalidating,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, of anyone in the group and stuff. I don't have any pictures of Matt because I don't want to disrespect Matt, but we never did any shows together, as far as I know. I don't
I
think
don't
we
think,
did,
no, we didn't go that
right?
far.
But we this was the last day, my last day of Matt's story, which I think is a good, it's a good thing, because George and I have talked about this in the past about pulling that band-aid early.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always this thing of, you think you're going to work it out. You know, this is part about being a band. You know, you got to work it out. You know, you got to compromise, you know, but sometimes you get that instinct feeling again, you know, and I'm telling you, folks, if you get that instinct, you got to go with it, man. If you don't go with it, you're going to really regret it. Um, and something told me right during rehearsals that this was not going to work out because of a few comments that he made
Mm-hmm.
to individuals, you know, me
Right. Right.
included. So the final thing was that he invited me to his place to record some music on one. He had like a little studio set up in his house, and it was a what you call an open concept. So you had the dining room, the living room, and then his little recording studio, all open concept, right? And you can see, you know, from the kitchen, you can see all the way into the studio, right? So he's trying to get me to play this part, being completely a dick about it. You know, no, what are you doing? You know how to play. I don't understand. Why aren't you playing it right? You know, and I'm like, because it was like a new thing that he's
Yeah.
teaching me that I'm trying to play, and I was like, dude, I'm trying to get it. Relax, or I'll get it. I'll get it. So he's this really happened. So he shows me how to hit record and then go back again, record, and you know, he got the place. I don't know much about recording, that type of recording, but where you hit a button and it goes right back to where you're supposed to come in again, right? So he marked it. You know, everything is marked. So I go back and I go back. So I'm there, I'm playing, and he's like, "All right, I got to go to dinner. You keep doing that. I'm gonna go to." He walks over to. He had a wife and a kid, and they walk over and they're literally eating down at the, while I'm in this room, and I got it. I got what I needed to get on the thing, but it was that moment I was like, first of all, there's no like, "Hey, John, you know, I'm sorry, we didn't make enough food." I don't care. I don't want to eat. You know what I mean? I
Right.
don't want to go
Right.
to somebody's house and eat. That's not why I was there. But, you know, at least say, you know, we didn't make enough food or anything. But, you know, um, no conversation. He just goes over there. They eat. And then he comes back again. And then afterwards, we sat in the car for like about 20 minutes talking. And I was like,
Not gonna work.
I don't think this is gonna work, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't. I like to be optimistic. I told him, and
Right.
he's like, "No, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna work." And I called you up. I think George got mad at me. I think George was like, George was like, he just wants a bass player. You know, George was just frustrated by trying to find somebody. Um, and I told him, I was like, dude. And then I told him, I told you what happened, and you were like, just laughing. It was so stupid. But then he realized, you know, it just didn't work. You know, it
Right.
just didn't work.
Right.
And then from that moment on, I draw a blank.
Well, I draw a blank too, but I only remember, I can only remember where Solly came into the picture. Okay, so for those of you who would like,
There's Sally
there's
in the
Solly
corner.
on the base there with the glasses. So we got Solly from an ad. Was it from an ad?
God, I have
I
no
want to
idea.
say it was from an ad. Okay,
Yeah,
I
it
mean I
might have
could
been
be
from an
wrong.
ad.
So Solly was a gentleman. He was an English gentleman, right? And he was one of those guys that he was. I could only say he was a wanderer. So
Yeah,
he would go out and he would play his bass out there on the streets, and he
great
would
bass player.
great, very, yeah, amazing bass
Like,
player.
yeah,
But that's what he did. He played on the streets. He would travel and he would be on the corner and he would make money with his hat or whatever. And
yeah.
that's what he would do.
He was a vagabond. He was
Yeah,
just
he was just that. So so he comes and we try him out and he plays amazing. I mean, he played the songs. He got them pretty
and
quickly.
he really liked the material too, which
Yes,
made us feel like it was a great thing because he just loved playing these songs.
he definitely enjoyed the material, and that's not all he enjoyed.
Yeah, he enjoyed the
Shall we dive into a little bit of that story?
Sure, that's why we're here.
Okay, so
Well, I remember that we want to take
and this is where
the highs and the
lessons
lows.
exactly. This is the highs and the lows, and this is where. So now here's the thing where you have a guy who's he's playing well, he's kind of fitting in musically, he's he's fitting in for the most part, right? So it ends up Holland, our singer, is now he's going to get married. He's getting married, and so we're all going to go to his wedding. So he invites all of us, including Solly, and Solly was still fairly new at that time. But uh, so the wedding was, what was it, up in the it was upstate New York somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so it was myself and my wife. We brought Solly with us, and a friend of mine who's a drummer, Marcello, who's also a drummer friend of mine. We've known him for many, many years. So we go up to the wedding. We're having a great time at the wedding. Well, come to find out that Solly is the type of gentleman that really cannot hold his liquor. So during the we were all sitting down having the meal at the wedding and having a good time or whatever, Solly starts to drink a little too much and starts to cause a scene at the wedding, to the point where he starts to yell and scream. And I was having a conversation with my friend Marcello, and he got upset at the table that we were having a conversation and not including him. So he proceeds to get up and start to yell at me in the middle of
And
in the middle of the reception.
nothing, yeah, and there's nothing funnier than a Englishman,
a drunken Englishman who's yelling at me, and he's banging on the table. Right, exactly. So it's a weird joke in there somewhere.
Bad joke.
So he's banging on the table and yelling throughout this whole reception.
Yeah, and it's like hundreds of. I mean, it was like a big wedding. It was like a huge wedding under a tent.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge, and so of course he's causing a scene. Everybody's looking now. So I took Solly outside and I said, Solly, listen, you need to relax, okay? Because you're causing a scene, and we don't want this to. So please relax. And we brought him back in, and he just continued to do it to the point where it just got too much. And in the middle of the meal, or towards the end of the meal, my wife and I decided, no, we can't keep this going, and we had to leave.
Yeah.
So
the funny part was I was talking to Holland and Holland's dad, and we're kind of having a conversation in a little, just us three talking. No, I'm sorry. I was talking to Holland and another gentleman, and Holland's dad walked by, and he whispers at us, "Your bass player's about to kick your drummer's ass," and he just walks away. Now Jim Cogger is a musician, a very well-known musician in the world of sax. He's actually played on a bunch of really great records, but we were actually in this little corner. So when we turned, we just see him kind of, and he was falling over.
Yeah,
he was falling over. So anyway, that's what happened with Solly. Wherever he is right now, I hope he's well. He was a good-hearted man. I think he just enjoyed drinking.
Right, but we had to the next day.
Right, so that's what I was gonna go into So the conversation next day we had a rehearsal. Was it the next day? I guess it was the next day, right?
Yeah, I think it was like a Sunday or something that we had to rehearse. Yeah.
So we get together at rehearsal the next day after a wedding, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And I decided that we were going to actually film. You remember that?
Yes, you
did. We were going to film.
Yes.
And we had this big giant VHS cassette recorder thing, and we had it set up. And I was going to face it towards each player during a moment. So what I did was I faced it towards George first, behind the drums, and then the conversation started about about what happened, and we started talking to Solly, and we're like, Solly, man, this was like, and his justification was that we put him at a table with someone that we shouldn't have. It was completely irrational. It didn't make any sense. So we started going and we started speaking. So till this day, I still have that cassette, George.
Wow.
It's basically a close-up of you, but you hear everyone else going at this conversation about what happened and stuff, and it was pretty hilarious. It was pretty hilarious. So I still have that. At some point, I'll put it. I'll do something. I'll put it up and just to have a good laugh about it. But the moral of that story is that you're gonna run into brilliant musicians and people that are really talented that unfortunately will bring you down if you decide that you want to keep pushing along because they're talented.
Right.
And that happens a lot. You take somebody who has the ability, who makes it easy for us. You know what I mean? We write the songs, he learns them in 2 seconds because that's the way he is. And there's really not a lot of rehearsal time for somebody like that. To lose him was really a bummer.
Yeah.
It was really just a bummer. But unfortunately for his sake, I thought, I don't think you should be part of this because I don't think you're gonna be bringing us down. And then the fear that we always had, which is one of the points that I made on the tape, was like the fear that we're gonna have is that every time we go out, that you're gonna create a scene.
Right.
We can't afford that. We're trying to do something here.
Yeah, and I immediately thought of what happens on stage. What happens if he decides to drink too much before he goes on stage or something? That the whole show could be ruined.
Throw the bass at your head. So that was Solly. Again, good-hearted person. I think he just kind of lost sight of stuff. Up to this point in our lives, the band life, we only had one guitarist up to that point, right? And obviously, we got to talk about Dave at some point, which is the conversation that sucks about this whole thing. But I want to go just backtrack a little bit about songwriting. I think it's important also, just coming back, that the bass player is involved in the songwriting but doesn't write the songs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you bring somebody in, I thought that was an important thing because all the bass players that we had, didn't write.
Right.
They came in as our bass player. You did a lot of arranging of a lot of the music, so you were an integral part of that element of it. Holland and I basically wrote the songs. We'll come in with songs and stuff. And hey, Larry, thanks, man. Appreciate it. You got it.
Thanks for coming on, man. Great.
All right,
great to hear from you.
We're gonna play a song for Larry. So excuse me, everyone. Which one should we play that we recorded, that we know we recorded there? Did we record Streets there? Yeah, Streets.
Yeah, we recorded Streets.
If These Colors Bled.
Yeah.
Let's play a little bit of this one. See if you remember this one. Ooh, a little staticky. Can you hear it?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Here we are, you and me. The difference in skin I can hardly see.
Favorite drum show.
On the banks of the water we have come to pray. Surely this will cleanse our mortal souls.
Great chorus. Yeah, so that was
If These Colors Bled.
If These Colors Bled, which, Larry, you got those drums. I've used the beginning, that drum fill. I've used it for my reel, like my acting reel. I've used it for the openings of shows, other shows that I've had. So you captured those drums. Everything is perfectly captured.
Yeah. And that whole thing was, I think, even that I think that was just the one of those things of creativity of like you just like
Yeah.
just got to try something completely different. We had I had never done anything like that drum wise for the group before.
Yeah, and it
Everything was
also picks up speed.
exactly.
It's something that you don't normally do, and you
Right.
kind of want to. We don't play to click tracks. Although I think you play to click tracks, but not for this. You can't really
Right.
unless you have a, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, Larry, thank you so much for everything, man. You're awesome, and we'll definitely chat.
Thank you, sir.
And take care of yourself, brother. Well, I will play the end of this because it'll lead us into our conversation about Dave.
Right.
Happy New Year, Larry. Thank you very much, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. Happy New Year, sir.
2022. Let's make it happen. So this was one of those moments that if you listen to Dave and my guitar here, two completely different parts, but they match well. So
beautiful.
yeah, so there you have it.
You guys had fun.
All right, that was Glass of Nose. If you go dead, all right.
98.7. You guys had fun trying to layer everything on top of those drums, right? When we first recorded, remember we recorded literally the drums are the first thing that went on.
I know.
I had to put the drums on by memory, really, for the most part.
I know.
I remember because we played them, we played it so many times that it was just there.
That was one of those songs that that was a Holland song, and just a great song, and that whole ending part was completely improvised.
Yeah.
I mean, improvised not when you heard it there, but improvised in in rehearsals and stuff. And me and Dave, and we'll talk about Dave in a little bit. But we looked. I remember when we started doing that, we were looking at each other like, it was like if you were. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, this sounds.
Those
what are
moments
we doing?
where it's just magic
this
right
is
there.
Perfect. This sounds so well meshed together. So Dave DeGasperis, probably one of the greatest people I've ever met, as far as like kind, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
This guy never spoke bad about anybody. He was like our George Harrison in a sense. He was just a kind, more quiet guy, but yeah, comparing us to the Beatles. We were like the Beatles, right? I'm more like Paul. George is Ringo. Now you're probably more like Paul, and I'm probably more like John.
I could see that.
But anyway, yeah, Dave was this great human being. Had a kind heart. Unfortunately, he was had been sick a little bit. He recovered and he joined our band, and he really added the element that we needed to our band, along with Eddie Cruz, who came sort of as a package deal. They worked together in the same place, and that became really the Glass of No that you heard on these songs, on the last record, called this one right here, which is
View from
Castle Hill. You can check that out if anybody's interested. You can go to Spotify. We're on Spotify. You can hear that. on there, and we're on Apple Music as well, and some other places. But yeah, Dave was one of these guys that had a great ear. I mean, a great ear for music. He was a great player. I'm gonna flash some pictures of us playing. Um, you know, I don't know. Again, I don't know where any of these clubs are, by the way. But he had a great ear for music. He had a good heart. He also really loved to laugh. And George and I, being clowns, we were just able to really get his button and really just made him laugh a lot. This was in the studio. This was at, actually, I think this was at Deep Wave, right, with
I
Larry.
think so.
I
Yeah.
think
Yep.
so.
Yep.
Um, and he was just a really great guy. And we lost Dave tragically. And it did put an end to what we were doing, I think, because he was a real soul of what we were doing. He was not only a great musician, but he was a great collaborator.
Right.
He wanted to make the songs be as good as possible. There was no jealousy on him. He wanted the song to be the best song that it can possibly be. And we just loved him, and we loved each other. Some of these pictures, by the way, are a little bit corrupted. I couldn't use all of them because they were old, and I don't know what cameras we had back then, but whatever it was, they didn't come out right. But yeah, Dave was just a great human being. And this is me when I had hair and still had the goatee. I guess I'm always gonna have that.
You look a little. You have the little like what's his name, Lin Manuel look.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And this was at Dave's wedding.
Right.
When he had a great wedding. This is us
Yep,
here
there we
celebrating
are.
at his wedding. That's a glass of new. So what can you say, right?
It's and it was one of those things where when we first got in the studio with those two guys, it was immediate.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
and
immediate.
not just musically. Musically, it was there, but also just
Just
the
personality.
friendship.
And
We
that
would
and
just
that's
hang
one of
out.
those things that was hard. That's the toughest thing, right? Because musically okay, but do you guys genuinely like each other, right? One of the I remember the guy who managed Rush also used to manage Van Halen, and I remember him saying that it's amazing, they made great music, but those guys hated each other. They
Yeah,
couldn't stand each other.
yeah. It's just such a horrible
you
thing
know
to have to go to do something that you love to do with people that you don't like.
Right. And I genuinely I looked forward to going into the studio, and it wasn't just because of playing music. It was just to be with the guys.
Yeah, just
Just to
laughing and
be, and we would go out to dinner afterward, let's say after a show or after a rehearsal or something, and we would have a fun dinner and just laugh.
yeah,
There was an energy that we had
yeah,
that just could not be duplicated.
yeah. And we would Pamela and I, were, I think, fairly new dating at that point, but we would go to their house. They were living in Jersey,
Right.
him and his wife and stuff, and we would go there and we'd we'd have the best time, just the best time. And he was one of those guys that once he started laughing, you lost him. Like he's,
Yeah.
And there was one particular moment that I remember we were going, we were waiting for the E train, and we were on the last car. And I don't know if I don't know, no, I don't know, no, you weren't there. I don't think you were
Right.
there. And we were waiting on the platform for the last car, and the train was going by, and the train was completely empty. Every single car that would pass by was empty, and then the last car was coming. And then I made a joke. I'm saying the last car, everybody's like this at the window. It's like the most crowded car. And for some reason, my timing was on and everything was perfect. He could not stop laughing through the whole train ride. And then, like, literally, he kept talking about that one moment because he kept going, thinking of the last train. The last car was just completely jam packed when the whole train was empty. But it was that kind of a thing, like silliness. And he would just get on this thing. And, his family was amazing. We still chat every once in a while with his mom and his dad and his brothers. And just a great guy. I mean, you know, what a hard time that was. Selfishly, I'm saying for me, obviously, it was hard for everyone that lost him. Everyone was close to him, but selfishly, I would say that when you lose somebody like that, the loss is you cannot replace it,
No.
and it's one of the reasons why he wasn't just a guitar player. He wasn't just our guitar player. You know what I mean? He wasn't a guy that we can replace like a bass player.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was a real soulmate of the band.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the loss was so big that we couldn't go on, man.
No, I
We
mean,
tried.
and that was the thing, right? The loss happened right at the height
Yeah, right.
of right. I mean, this is literally where we were we were getting to another level of musicianship that we were all starting to become really happy with, because there was a point where we were, even
Trying to
myself,
find.
remember, there was a point where we were having a hard time. Even myself, I found myself having a hard time where I was getting, and this is one of those things you got to think about as a musician also when you're in a band, right? You know, am I growing as a musician? And,
Right.
am I staying stagnant? And I felt
Right.
that I was staying stagnant. I
Right.
felt that there was, and I was starting to look at other things. I was starting to branch out and play with other people as well as Glass of No. And then, but we started to get to a place in music where we started to write new material that
Mhm.
that started to get more interesting again. And, the excitement started to happen again.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately we lost them pretty much right at that point. And it's just like you said, selfishly, I couldn't
Oh.
play anything.
Oh.
I couldn't
Yeah.
play. Forget about listening to our own material.
No.
I could not
It took
get
me years to be able to listen to
yeah,
anything.
I couldn't get behind the drums for a better part of almost a year. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. It wasn't, there wasn't a point to me, because it
Yeah.
was almost like you lost your brother at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and
It
it was
was.
like,
It was. It was. And the well, the whole experience of going there, that whole experience of afterwards, after he was so it was so dramatic,
yeah,
and something that I'll never forget, that I will not take for granted anyone that's around me till this day because of that.
right,
Anyone that I love that's around me, I love them even more because I know how quickly it can just stop.
right,
But yeah, you're right. We were at this other level. We came up with, there was a song called Devil Tree,
right,
which luckily we have a recording of
right.
not recorded studio wise, but we did play it live
We
at some
played live.
gigs,
Yep.
and we have a really nice recording of that. And that pretty much exactly shows us where we were heading.
Right.
It was really creative stuff, and it was it was challenging to learn but that's what made it exciting.
Right.
It was like, oh, we can, we're really venturing out into something. Um, we had a couple of songs playing on the radio on locally in New York, which was fun, and it
Yeah.
was the beginning of like social media, so people would, hey, and somebody say, hey, I just heard your song at the pizza shop, and that was always a lot of fun to hear. So we were at that, at that point, and even though we did try, I don't know if you remember Shad.
Yes.
Shad, great
Yes.
guy, by the way, great
Yes.
player. I
Yes.
still talk to Shad.
Yes.
He came in, and I remember the first time he had to play Dave's parts.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with his playing.
Right.
He's a great player, but there's a certain soul that you bring to it and this is the part right here, actually, as a matter of fact. So that's Dave. And so this day, I don't know how to play this. He showed me once, and I'm sure I could sit down and figure it out, but I don't want to. And we tried to have Shad play it, and Shad learned it, but he learned it the way he would play it.
Right,
And
right.
it's no fault of anybody, but it just didn't fit in. And we could never do this song live again because I couldn't play that part. I didn't even want to learn that part. I remember people telling me, like, learn it. And I was like, I don't want to learn that part. I feel like I'd be doing something wrong. You
Right.
know what I mean? I felt bad about trying to learn that part. Because then I'm admitting that he's not going to play it again.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to say that.
And we did end up playing, I think it was a couple of not reunion tributes,
Today,
tribute shows to Dave.
right?
But
Raise
he,
money for the
to
family.
raise, exactly, and to, for fun for the family, especially his son. But I remember being on that stage and just there was that space. There was an empty space
Yeah,
there.
yeah. This was
That
the first year that we did it.
Yeah, the concert for Dave. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I remember also. I think I have a picture of us playing it. Or I think I just have a picture of myself. Sorry, that's the only one I could find. But yeah, that was his guitar, and I remember walking in and seeing that for the first time and
right.
just kind of losing it, but trying to control myself. And you know, it was really difficult. I mean, if there's anything to learn by this, is the fact that artists are really the most important people on the planet, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I wanted to talk a little bit about an organization that I'm involved in called Artists for a Better World. And since I moved to Nashville, I've sort of running the Nashville chapter of Artists for a Better World International, and meeting artists that I've been doing recently, and you see their intent is to make the world a better place. You know what I mean? And when you lose someone like that, and that there's that void, it instead of us, and it's easy to say now for us, right? Instead of us having shut down, we should have created more art
Right.
and more music
Right.
and gone even faster and spread more joy, right?
Right.
I look at that now, and of course it's easy for me to say it now. You know what I mean? At the time, it was too devastating and I couldn't do it. And this is sort of like a learning lesson for anyone out there that goes through a heartache, and God forbid you lose someone. But if you, even any heartache, a breakup or something that you can overcome, the answer is always to create more art.
Mm-hmm.
Always to create more art. And this is how I live my life now. If I'm in the dumps, if I'm feeling bad about something, I pick up my guitar and I play. I'll do a live. You've seen me do lives on Facebook and stuff. I'll do a quick live. I'll improvise a song. I'll play a song, and that'll get me jazzed up. We do this show. This is part of our create right now. But it's so important to really just 10x when you're feeling bad.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Nigel. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
No, and you're absolutely right. It's I mean, as artists, we have to. I remember,
Yeah.
and I remember,
Depends on us.
Yeah, no, it's true. If you, I remember having this conversation with my wife, and I told her, I said, and my wife and I have been married for 21 years. And so she's been through all that whole thing. I mean, she's been there through the shows, she's been there through the ups and downs of all the music industry and all this. And I told her, I remember saying, creating is just a part of me.
Right.
I can't not create.
Right.
Whether it's this show, whether it's music, whether it's whatever it is, because that's what I'm put on this planet to do. Just create, even if it's building a website. That's a part of my creative process. Right. And that music that we did, all those years of music and playing, and even after, I continued playing with other groups and things like that, and doing sessions and stuff. But it was just my communication with the world was through that vehicle.
Right.
That I had to do it.
Yeah. And, for me, it was film.
Right.
After that happened, I started, I got into film in front of the camera, and then eventually writing and directing films. It's almost like a bit of a gift in a sense, that through that tragedy, something was born that I probably wouldn't have dove into as much as I have. And I'm super fortunate and happy that I did. But to wake up in the morning and have a blank sheet of paper, and then to put something on it that wasn't there, and then to share it with people and make them feel good and make them feel like they have a chance of doing it themselves.
Right.
Because that's really what we want to do. We want everyone to express their art. We want everyone to be artists, That to me is part of life, and if you're not creating, if you're an artist and you're not creating, you're kind of dying
Right.
slowly, a
True.
painful death.
True.
You may not feel it like a knife to the chest, but I guarantee you it's painful.
You will know it.
You
You will
will
know.
definitely
You
know
will
it.
absolutely know it if you are an artist and you're not creating, because you will feel it inside that there's something missing. And
Absolutely.
even those days when we lost Dave and I wasn't doing anything creative, um, and it was difficult because I was grieving, and at the same time I wasn't doing anything creative either.
Right.
So it was a
It
struggle
makes
for
it
me.
even worse. Yeah.
It made it that
Makes
much
it
worse.
worse.
But now on the positive side, and the thing that I would say to any artists out there, or any bands out there, it's your God-given talent. Use it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely agree. And again, one thing I would say for especially bands out there, if you can find a group of folks in a band that gel, and that you guys you all create together, and you have that chemistry, and you have that thing where it flows, man, run with it, man, just run with it,
Yeah.
because
Embrace it. Don't.
embrace it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And don't. It's hard to say because you don't. Don't bicker.
Right.
Time goes
That's the
by
hardest
fast. I
part. It's
mean,
the
George and I
hardest
talk
part.
about this. George, I remember when George was 16, 15 years old, 9 years old, 7 years old, 5 years old. And here we are. He's been married for 21 years now. He's got a beautiful daughter. I got two kids. I've been married now 19 years. You know what I mean? It goes by like that,
Yeah.
and people don't realize it. And when you add to it nonsense, like nonsense things, if you wipe that out, yes, you have to deal with the struggles. Obviously, when we
Mhm.
lost Dave, that was a huge, tremendous, tremendous struggle. It was hard to get through that. But everything else you can get through because of the art.
Right.
The art is what's going to get you through.
Right.
And I got into acting. I kind of feel almost like, I've talked about this with my therapist, but I've talked about this before, like that. I think I just wanted to be someone else.
Yeah.
And I became an actor where I can kind of go and play characters and be this other thing, and it took a lot of training and a lot of stuff from my religion that really made me realize, oh, you know what, I'm being selfish. I'm being selfish because I have been given abilities and I'm not using them. I'm not
Mhm.
sharing them. I'm not helping others to try to for them to try to actually use their art. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And so that's a real eye opener for me. And just a quick thing to anybody out there, any artists out there, if you're, any kind of struggling, if you're an artist and if you need any help, this group that I told you about, Artists for a Better World, go to artistforabetterworld.art. You can actually join our page. We have a Facebook page. We're going to be, there's going to be a lot of content out there, a lot of artists out there, hundreds of artists out there. I meet artists all the time here in Nashville, obviously. And, I want to get them into this community. We're going to be doing a concert in April of next year. It's a big concert, and there's a lot happening right now. And not just that, but you have to understand that you're not alone. So if you feel like you cannot create for whatever reason, if you're in an environment that's preventing you from creating, if you're in a group where you're like the only sane one and you got people around you that are suppressive and maybe invalidating of some way, join this group, message me. You can always email me, and you can email me right here at johnhenrysoda@protonmail.com. I will talk to you. I will help you. I will guide you as best as I can, and George as well. I'm sure George will offer his help as well.
Absolutely.
We've been through it and we want to be there for you guys,
Absolutely.
So definitely we want to be able to help our community and be able to, and maybe if I work hard enough, I can grow my hair back like this.
And then you can be in what's that play?
Yeah. Lights up in Washington Heights.
Yeah, there you go.
I know that whole thing. But yeah, so very, very important that you guys are out there. And thanks listening to this from New Zealand. Wow.
Oh, New Zealand.
New Zealand in
Hey.
the house. Right on.
Right.
Thank you, Nigel. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
New Zealand in the house. Cool. All right. Well, listen, this is a conversation that I think George and I will probably have to revisit again and maybe take some other elements. We didn't tell any club stories,
Right.
which we have a lot of.
Yeah.
We didn't tell any studio stories.
Like
We
a
didn't tell
3-hour
any-
show for that one.
Yeah,
for those.
exactly. It would be just we'd be here all night. But we will definitely do this again. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you all. We didn't talk about playing live and those challenges and playing live, and the clubs and
We got to
and
do more of this.
the club.
definitely.
What do you call it? The club dynamic from then to now.
Yes.
It's different. I'm in Nashville now. The clubs here are a little different. But we'll definitely be able to do another one of these and talk about more stuff. Next week we have another music show. Next week we have John Statham is going to be on the show. He's a recording artist. He's the music maker. He's got a new album coming out, which we're really excited about. We're going to be talking about it. And then a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, I don't remember, but it's coming up. We're going to have Break Time in the house. And Break Time, we're going to be talking about music and that world. They're a young band, so I've kind of sort of taken them under my wing a little bit and helped them out, guide them a little bit as much as I can. And they're great guys, and we're excited to have them on the show. So that's in a couple of weeks. We'll be here. So that is all, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. Happy New Year. Have a blessed New Year with your families. Take care of yourselves. Let's make 2022 amazing, and we will see you next year. And that is all.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Peace.